you can all settle in and show your cameras. And when you're ready to have a chat, you can say hi. But then if you just keep yourselves muted until you want to have a chat, hopefully this will be I'm really excited about this. And I might just actually take the opportunity to welcome Amar Latif.
Hi,
welcome,
Debbie.
Amar. Thank you for volunteering to host these really important, the past three book clubs that we've been running on Ron Baker's book, Implementing Value Pricing. It's not only a huge book, you've got it in the background there, I see, Amar. It's physically a Bible size book, but absolutely jam-packed full of gems. And this is the third one. We had Ron Baker. Oh my gosh, I was so excited to see him join us it was early on this month actually, I think it went for over 2 hours. So that was an awesome experience to have the author present with us, and I was thrilled about that. So welcome, Amar. Amar is hosting today's session, talking about the practical aspects of implementing Ron Baker's methodologies. So welcome, Amar. I'll hand over to you.
Thank you, Debbie. And totally agree. It was a great session with Ron earlier this month, and I was really surprised that he actually prepared a PowerPoint deck, and he actually shared a lot of content that was outside the book as well, which was great. Great to see. So in this session, we've covered chapters 1 to 17 in October. So in today's book club, we're covering from chapter 18 to the end of the book. And that's where it gets really meaty, where it starts going through the actual steps to implement value pricing in your firm. So it should be an interesting discussion. Thank you to those who've jumped on. Good to see Scott, Joe, Paul, and Larissa as well are with us. Hopefully you've managed to read the book, or if not, parts of the book as well. So we're going to try and make it interactive, and try to see what you guys got out of the book, whether you're planning to implement value pricing in your firm, and if there's anything in the book that you disagree with as well. So I'm kind of the key, I think, with value pricing. It's really a big transformation in your practice. It's not just a change in your sales process. It's a change in the way you communicate with your clients. It's a change in the way you measure the performance of your staff in terms of the KPIs that you track in your firm as well, and the after action reviews, as well as the 8 steps that Ron goes through in implementing value pricing. So keen to open it up first and see what you guys got out of the book. So I might jump to you, Scott, since you were the first and earliest to join us.
Thanks, Amar. Well, as those who are keen Facebook watchers know, I had a monitor looking after me on the weekend while I was reading. A literal one. I must admit, I haven't read a lot of the second half of the book because I've been catching up on the first half. But I was interested in the whole thing about ditching timesheets altogether, which is what, the key part of the first part of the second part is. And I know he's talking about a mentality thing, but I don't know what others think, but I feel if I don't do a timesheet for myself, I lose the discipline of, keeping up with things and whatever. So I'm just wondering what other people took on that.
So I think, he says in the book, customers, they're not buying your time, they're buying the value you create for your customers. So I think when it comes to timesheets, that keeps us focused on how long it takes us to get a job done, where he's trying to change the mindset to how effective are we in creating value to the customer. So when I think a lot of people like to track timesheets just to make sure that they've priced an engagement accurately, i.e. I price engagement with an estimate of 10 hours a month. So track how long it took us to get it done. Where with the value pricing methodology, your focus, your pricing is solely based on how much value you're going to create for your clients, rather than the pricing, which is why he suggests just scrapping it completely.
Yes, I did struggle, and I still struggle a little bit with that concept. But I think I get what he's saying, and I get that it is a lot to do with a mindset shift. And as soon as you, or while you are holding on to the timesheet and measuring that, he says you're measuring the wrong thing. And we're going to be talking about what you're measuring today as well, and having a little chat about that with the KPIs and what you are actually measuring. My question, I guess, to the people here is, do you think, or has anyone implemented value pricing but are still running the timesheets alongside it, or did you do that at the start? Is that, I probably, if Ron was here, he would slap my wrist, I think, virtually, for even suggesting it. But what do you think here, the people on the call?
From my point of view, I think I am still running timesheets, but I put that down to the fact that I'm not using value pricing the way it's supposed to be used as yet. I think you need to have value pricing fully implemented and have those conversations with your client straight at the start and assess what they value, and then have a price list in place that you can draw on. If you're reverting back to timesheets, you haven't implemented the process fully yet, I believe, and that's where I sit right now. I haven't had those conversations, so I just keep tracking my time so I can keep track of what I need to bill the customer. I think there'll be more confidence in letting those timesheets go when you've started out the process the proper way.
I think that's a good observation, and yes, I think that is probably, yeah, I think that's a good indicator. If you are still using timesheets and feel you need the security of that, then yes, the whole value, the questions, the scoping the work, asking the client, all those questions that Ron gives examples of in the book of what to ask the client. If you're confident with that and confident that you understand the value, then I can see it would just naturally, you think, oh, thank goodness, I don't have to track time anymore. But while you're transitioning to that, I think that's probably a good way of indicating whether you have actually fully implemented it or not.
Mm.
Does it also depend on your staffing model? So if you've got contractors or casuals as distinct from a salaried employee, you're going to ask them to track their time and justify their hours. But if you've got a salaried employee, the approach might be a little bit different.
I'm not sure if it is different between a contractor. Sorry, Lewis.
Yeah, I was just going to say, with contractors, I feel like you would have that same conversation. You would say to the contractor, this is what I need from you, and this is how I need that BAS done, or I need the monthly processing done, and this is how much I'm giving you for it. Go and take 10 hours, go and take 50 hours. Not my problem. This is how much I'm giving you for it. That would be my, I don't have contractors, but that's probably how I would lean.
I mean, but you would obviously be tracking the hours contractors work, because you're probably paying them.
No, I disagree that it's not obvious. If you're chucking out timesheets, you're chucking out timesheets completely.
Yeah, I'd agree.
Well, I guess it depends on the secret you have with the contractor. If you've engaged the contractor and paying them on an hourly basis.
Yeah, but that's the argument, isn't it? You don't pay them on an hourly basis. You pay them on what they're doing for you. And that has a value, a fixed value, regardless of how long they take.
It's the psychology behind this is absolutely fascinating and a little bit mind-bending. Welcome, Summer and Joe. Nicole, Bradley, I think we didn't say welcome to you. Joe, have you got some, Joe Willis, I should say, yeah.
So I have a bit of a, sorry, I can hear myself echoing back in my headphone. So I have casuals, they're using timesheets. I have a subcontractor, I pay her for result. And it's so in particular for one, it's a set fee for the month and the result. And if she does it in less time, well, kudos to her. As long as the quality's there and every box is ticked, I don't have an issue with that. That client is on a fixed fee for the month as well. And I say fixed fee rather than value added, because I literally sat down, looked at what hours he'd taken me for the last, couple of years and gone, okay, this is going to be your price, rather than going, this is our value. So I'm really looking forward to finishing this book because I want to embrace it. I think it's going to be the game changer in my practice. And it will be, the timesheets will be a challenge, because I do tend to do one of my KPIs is just watching the time they're spending on it. So I need to move my headset away from that and going, well, you've got this result and that's what I wanted from you. And I think those after action meetings are going to be important. I'm in the throes of moving my office completely remote. So that's distracted me for the last month. So I'm a little bit behind with the book, but I can't wait to get to where all the checklists and the exciting bit is for helping us actually do it. How do we interview the client and decide? Like I've been very, whenever I have a new client come on, it's always a case of what's important to them, because for me, it's having that beautiful set of books. But to them, all they care about is, for God's sake, will you do it for us so I don't have to think about compliance ever again? And then they're the ones that, they get the prompt email before they've even thought about having, to do anything. So it's what's important to them is not necessarily what's important to us. So I like this whole concept. It's really exciting. Timesheets are going to be a challenge for us all, but I think it's great, and I think my employees would love it, not having to enter times and account for that. Clearly, going remote, I'm setting days and work hours so that I know they're downing tools and walking away from the tasks. So that will be one of the things I'll be working on at the same time as trying to get rid of some of the practices like time monitoring.
So, bring our employees are at the coal phase. They're the ones that are going to be predominantly delivering this value to our clients. So having them rewarded for the value that they're creating and having their KPIs based on that value becomes essential as part of implementing value pricing in the firm. And even he talks a lot about the fixed price agreement and setting up, managing scope creep through change orders or change requests. Our staff are going to be the ones that are going to be identifying those change requests. So having clear understanding of the scope of our engagement, what falls outside of that engagement, that's going to need to come from our staff, so they could then let us know when a variation is required, so that we're not tied down to doing everything for the client. We're only tied down to what's been agreed in the fixed price agreement, and then everything else goes through a change request process.
Yeah. And it just shows you how important it is to, this is a journey with that you bring your staff along with you along this journey. It's not you're implementing value pricing and off you go and then the staff do the work. It really is, because I know each one of you would have had this experience where each time or whenever, however many times the client comes to you and says, oh, can you do this now? Can you, if I hand over this over to you, can you now manage that? And if the staff if they're not trained to say, hang on a minute, is that you need to speak to Joe or Scott or whoever it is, the owner first. And it's kind of goes, for me, it goes a little bit against what we do, but it's important that we do that. Like, I feel like I would always say, yes, I can do that. Yes. And what else do you want me to do? And I can do this and do. Value pricing is pausing for a moment, taking a breath and having a think about what is it that the client's asking you? Why are they asking you to do that? Is that part of the current scope of work? And what is the value? If it isn't, so you identify it isn't, what value does that have? And you then have another sales conversation. That's one thing I learned from Ron, that every time a client asks you to do something new, that's actually a new sales conversation. It's not, yes, can I do that? It's like, oh, why do you want me to do that? What is it that you need that for? How will that help you? And then it's a whole bunch of questions, which is a little bit, I guess, it's different. It's different to the way we normally operate. But it's a very important step to kind of pause for a moment, put the space in front of you, and then think, I wonder why they want that. Let me ask some questions. Amar, you want to go through, don't you? I guess we better get on to that because there's so much to cover in this. You want to go through the 8 steps of implementing. And so I'll hand over to you and we'll work through those and hopefully we'll get through all of this in this session.
Yeah, it sounds good. So I thought it would be worthwhile. And I know a lot of people on this call probably haven't had a chance to complete the book. So I thought just going through high level the 8 steps that Ron puts in the book, and it's amazing how detailed and comprehensive the book is. It really does provide the full framework for us to take and implement in our practices. So he lists down a lot of the questions we should be asking our clients to articulate and derive that value that we're going to be creating in that engagement. So really encourage everybody to go through and read through. I'm not going to go through all the examples, but he provides a lot. He provides the framework to actually implement value pricing. But if we just go through the 8 steps, so he starts with step 1 as the conversation. So actually sitting down and just focusing on understanding their needs and their wants from the engagement. So that it's really a note-taking session. So you start off just by trying to understand exactly what they're looking for. And then you then have an opportunity to communicate the value that you can add. So you're not talking about your prices at this stage. You're mainly just focusing on what are the value drivers of our customer. What's the maximum value we can provide, and then capturing that value through a tailored package. So I really like that the first step is really just on having conversation about the value that the customer is looking for, what they want and need, and the value that we can provide to the customer as well. So that was step 1 of his 8 steps. Step 2 then goes through.
Before you go on to that, I think I'd like to just make a comment. Thoughts that I had, what I discovered. Again, like when we go and meet with a new prospect, in our minds, typically, we would go, as a technician, we would go, okay, when's your BAS due? How many staff do you have? Are you on IAS? Do you have monthly pay-as-you-go installments? Who's your accountant? When was your last tax return done? What software are you using? It's all around the bookkeeping. And you need to ask those questions, obviously, but they are nothing to do with value-based pricing questions. And I think this can be a challenge for many bookkeepers, again, because we are going from a technician mindset to a leader or a manager of your business, and a different mindset. When you go in with, I need to know what this person values, they don't actually value getting that. Like, they do kind of value the BAS. They know it needs to be done, but it's because if they don't, the ATO's got a big stick and is going to whack them over the knuckles if they don't get their BAS done. So they're doing it because they're forced to do it, not because, oh, this is awesome, I really want my BAS done. What you want to find out, so they kind of don't really care about that. What they care about, a whole bunch of other things. And unless you ask them what else they value, and I've got listed a few questions from, and I won't go through all of them because there's lots, and Ron Baker puts lots, what are your key frustrations as a business owner? What keeps you awake at night? What's prompted this meeting? Why are they looking for a bookkeeper or a new bookkeeper? What do you dislike about your business? What's your plans for your future? These questions might actually not only they're out of the box for what bookkeepers normally ask, but they're out of the box of what a typical prospect would expect a bookkeeper to be asking. They might be thinking, hang on, I want you to come in and I've got to get someone to do my BAS and compliance. What you want to, and this is the journey, this is part of the journey that you're on, the conversation that you're finding out about is, oh, I do more than that. I do more than data entry and compliance. This is the beginning of that conversation, and also will help you identify those people. If they look at you and go, no business of yours what my plans are for the future, I want you to do the data entry and compliance, then, that's an indication to you of what they actually value, and they will probably be price sensitive, and there could be, but it's not to say they're a bad client, but it sets complete expectations about what it is that they value. They don't want any of the other high-end services that you can offer. So you put them in a box, charge them appropriately if that's what you want to do, but you don't provide them any extra bells and whistles that you would normally provide for clients offering the other services, or providing them with the other services that you offer.
Worthwhile. I know a lot of people on.
Sorry, Paul, did you have a question? Oh, not sure what happened there.
Yeah, I totally agree with that, Debbie. I think so that first step is really focused on creating that shared vision for the future, as Ron says in the book. So actually focusing on the transformation that the customer will go through by working with you. Like Ron says, he's saying that the customer's looking to maximize the value they receive while trying to minimize your price. So it's far more strategic to have a discussion on that value that you can provide, rather than just focusing on the price. So it's really focused on that end in mind, in that initial step of, okay, what's our vision of the future? What do we want to achieve by working together? So I might go to step 2. So once we've defined the value and articulated that, communicated that to the client, then he goes through actually pricing the customer, and he refers to a value council. So having a value council within our firms. So if we're not good at deriving value, then hiring someone to actually determine the value provided to clients. It might be someone internal to our team or external as well. So it will be that value council who's then going to be focused on pricing the customer. And so he goes through a lot of questions for us to ask before we establish a price to derive that value we're going to create, and then converting that to to a price that we could then charge. And so he goes through coming up with a reservation price, a hope for price, and a pump fist price. So it's kind of that bronze, silver, gold packaged pricing. So it really just focus on having different pricing options, which is then step 3, where he's saying that it's best to offer multiple options, having 3 options for customers to choose from, based on the level of value that you're going to provide in that engagement. So it's not a one package, take it or leave it, single price. You're effectively allowing the customer to choose how they want to engage with you based on the various packages that you provide. And the whole focus then is how much value they're wanting to get out of this engagement. And he goes through the psychology of having 3 packages. So I know Debbie spent a lot of time on that, the behavioral economics and psychology of pricing as well. So I'd be keen to get Debbie or anyone else on the call that's offering different packages to customers as well.
I find the whole behavioral economics is fascinating, and didn't really know anything about it until I read his book, and I really got it. It kind of like, for example, what was it? A couple of years ago, we bought a new car, and you know how with cars they have 3. There's always 3 models to choose from, whatever they call them, Premier and something or other and Deluxe or whatever it is. And we looked at the Deluxe one, and he's got some really interesting ways of how you present your packages as well. There's psychology around when you're presenting your packages, you always start off with the highest one, and then you go down from that, because there's psychology around removing, there's a term he uses that I can't remember what it's called, but when someone sees all the ones with the bells and whistles, and then you say, now the medium one doesn't include these ones, and then the basic model doesn't include those ones, and this is what you get. They kind of feel a little bit let down, and so they're more inclined to go for the more expensive model if they value that. It's still their choice. It's not like you're twisting their arm. For example, using that car, when we were looking at it, we looked at the Deluxe one, and the only difference between the Deluxe one and the one we bought, which was the middle of the range, was the Deluxe one had a sunroof, and it had Bose surround sound. And I had a car with the sunroof for 6 or 7 years, and I think I opened it 3 times. I don't go and sit in my car to listen to, I don't need the Bose surround. I don't sit in my car to listen to music. I have music, or I listen to books and what have you when I'm driving. For that, it has a function rather than an experience. So we both, my husband and I, agreed that it was an extra $3,000 for those 2 things. Now, someone else, obviously, lots of other people buy the Deluxe one because they want the whole Bose surround sound experience as they're driving along the car, or they love the idea of having the sunroof opened and the air coming in and things. So that's what they value, so they buy that. We didn't value that. The guy didn't twist our arm. He just said, well, which one do you prefer? And we talked about it, and we said, well, actually, yeah, I didn't use a sunroof, and I don't care about the music. So we chose the middle of the range. But there is psychology around how you present that information to your clients as well. He goes into, it's really, there's a lot of information, but it's really clear. To me, it was really clear about the psychology around that, and absolutely fascinating. It also will give you some insights possibly into your own spending habits, and why the marketing people in the shopping centres put things at the checkout, and why they put things down low where your little toddlers can see them, and all that. There's all the psychology around that. So it might even give you a bit of an awareness about your own spending habits and where you're finding you automatically go for that thing over there because it's right near the checkout, rather than thinking about, do I actually need this? And is it actually going to provide me value? Or is it just a want and it's really a waste of money?
Very true. Very true. And he actually talks through.
Can I just add something there?
Of course.
The other thing, of course, is after you present that top package, it's just pause for a minute, because they might actually say, yes, I want that.
Yes, I want
because
that.
we don't just spiel into the second one before they don't, they might more be ready. Yes, I want this. This is what I want, right? So
yeah, this is
I
exactly.
know that's
It's exactly what I've been looking for.
I've talked over the client and gone, oh, you probably wanted the big one, really.
Yeah, no, that is a very good point. And I think those pregnant pauses are also something that most people feel uncomfortable about. Like we don't sit very comfortably in a quiet space, especially when we're in the room with someone else. So it's like taking a breath and allowing that to sink in, and then moving on to the next thing. It's like when they, as I said before, when they ask you if you can do this, pause for a moment, allow that pregnant pause, get comfortable with pregnant pauses, because that's you thinking about what it is that they're asking you and how you're going to present your answer to them.
Absolutely. So then moving on to step 4. So step 4 then goes through presenting the various options to the customer. And he actually goes through how to handle price objections as well in step 4 as well. So if you've got a customer that's objecting to your price, he focuses on maybe you haven't done an adequate job in actually educating the customer about the value that you're going to be providing. So maybe it's not so much if a customer's challenging the price, but maybe they're not challenging the price, but doubting the value that you're going to deliver. So reiterating the value that you're going to be providing in that engagement. And the more value that we build up in the conversation, then the more price that we can command in that engagement as well. And if you've got a customer that's his only consideration is price, then that's probably not an ideal client for us to work through. So focus on customers who are looking to get as much value from your services rather than those that are just trying to pay as little as possible. So being clear on the type of customers that we want to work through as well. And he goes through as well in terms of credibility of our pricing strategy for our firm. So if customers are objecting to a price, then be really slow and reluctant to actually just start cutting our fees, because then you lose credibility with the customer as well. And it degrades your firm's pricing strategy and integrity as well. So he says if customers cannot afford to pay the fees, then it's a case of having a conversation in terms of cutting some of the value that you're going to be providing. And that value doesn't necessarily mean services, but it could be delivery of those services, number of engagements throughout your engagement as well. It could be the payment terms as well. So making sure that if price is still an issue, then rather than cutting prices, you're cutting value from that engagement. Then step 5 goes through actually providing the fixed price agreement. And it's interesting that it's only at step 5 that we actually go through and provide a fixed price agreement. Usually, like I know myself as well, it's usually in that first meeting with the client, I've already got my engagement letter ready to go. But you've got to go through those 4 steps first before you then go through and actually go through the scope of work, the customer's responsibility to provide information then gets detailed in that fixed price agreement. the timelines for delivery of the work. So he provides an example of a fixed price agreement in the book as well. Step 6 then goes through project management. So once we've got the client engaged, he focuses on how critical it is to actually have a project management system in place to actually manage the scope of the work, detail who's going to be performing what work, the timeline for delivery of the work. And he goes through 3 interrelated variables in terms of scope, resources and time, and how as each one changes, it's going to affect the other 2 as well. So there's any changes to the scope, then we then have to factor in the change in the cost and delivery of that scope as well. And then step 7, which is an area that I really liked, is scope creep and change orders. So what to do when we encounter scope creep while performing the work. So focusing on having that open communication dialogue with the customer, issuing a change order to perform this additional work, and pricing that change order as well, based on the value that you're gonna provide as well. So I think we can be, and I know I'm guilty of this as well, reluctant to change an engagement letter, but it's so important that as part of our managing of the job, that we're conscious of what the fixed price agreement covers, and anything outside of that then goes through a change order process as well to capture that scope creep.
And I think that this comes in line with what we said earlier, that you need to alert your staff as to what they really need to be clear about what the scope of work is, and to be trained to be alert to any additions to the scope of work. And I think of this like a builder. Anyone in the building industry, or if you've worked with builders before, if they do a renovation and they quote on this and that and the other thing and a new window over here and et cetera, and they say, this is the quote for the job. And then, in fact, this happened to me when we were doing a renovation in our old house. And when I saw the window that was delivered, I said, oh, is that the size of the window that's going there? And he said, yes, it is. That's what we agreed on. I said, oh, that's smaller than what I expected. And he said, well, we can make it bigger, but that'll be, I think they call it a change order variation. They call it a variation in the building industry. So he said, oh, well, yeah, I can send it back and get a bigger one, sign this variation agreement, and that's just added $2,000 to the quote. And you just do that. I was signing variations, the whole thing was full of variations because I didn't know this was that and what have you. So again, it's foreign to us as bookkeepers. We are so willing to just, please people and be helpful and get the job done and say, yes, we're can-do people. I can do that. They give us, we want rave reviews and all of that sort of thing. It's a change of mindset. This is you now as the manager, not the technician doing the work. This is the manager. So the manager inside your head has got just as much of a battle changing the mindset of the technician that's going on in your head as they have convincing the staff who are the technicians that we are not doing everything that the client says. You need to come back to me if there's a variation to the original engagement letter. And then I think what I got from the way he described it was, oh yeah, well, it happens in the building industry. They call it variations. It's just the difficult thing for us is that it hasn't been part of the way we've always done things. This is different to the way we've always operated, and different means adapting, means feeling uncomfortable, feeling awkward, until you start doing it often enough that you start to feel comfortable. And then this change orders, or whatever you want to call it, will become just part of what you do. That's how you run a professional business.
Absolutely. And we need to get comfortable with that. So it becomes a big part of it, like even says, by increasing the level of engagement and communication that we have with our clients, with our customers, we're going to identify all these new additional services and needs that they have. And then we just manage those through change orders throughout the process. So we're not just locked into that fixed price agreement. We're actually identifying new opportunities to add value to our customers and managing those through change orders as well.
And I think part of this, if you think about the psychology behind it, the client has agreed with you on the scope of work. You've done the fabulous presentation, you've shown them the 3 packages, they've said, no, I don't want the bells and whistles, I want this here. And then if you've got your bells and whistles, which you would have on your top of the range package, and then they start asking for that, if they might say, look, I want to be able to access you whenever I need you. Oh, that's actually, yes, sure. That's part of our top package up here. So are you saying you want to take advantage of all the other things that's now important to you, that you want to do that? Yes, I want to do that. So they are always, it's just the way you present it. You're not saying, well, that's going to cost you another $150 a month or something. You're saying, oh, that's part of our, you can have that for sure. That's part of our top package. So Ron explains in quite a lot of detail about the different conversations you have with your clients to change the order, but it's not you saying, oh, well, I can do that. It's going to cost you $150 a month. It's like, oh, I see. You want my premium package then. Okay, well, let me show you that again, because that not only includes that, but it includes these other things. And then they then make the choice whether they really want that extra thing and they value that. And so then they're happy to pay your bill because they've made a decision themselves. It's not you telling them that's going to cost you $150 a month. They decide whether they want to pay that amount or not.
Very true. I'd be interested to actually open it up to the participants on the call to see how do you manage scope creep? Do you issue change orders similar to Ron does, or how do you manage scope creep outside of your engagement?
I think it comes back to the fact that not having confidence in our value pricing system, and you just bill them the hours that every time they ask you to do something, you just keep track of the time and bill them for it. And that's sort of just the comfort zone. I think I find myself, I keep thinking I'll do it when I've figured it all out, when I've finished reading the book, but it hasn't happened yet.
Yeah, I'm with Larissa. I'm the same.
Still hourly?
Still hourly. I've got a few fixed fees, but I'm just telling myself the same thing. When I finish the book, I'm going to start implementing it.
Awesome.
Yeah. And I think that's fair enough. Obviously, look, this isn't something that, even when you finish the book, it's not like this miraculous thing where you go, oh, now it's all going, I've now read the book, it's all going to be beautiful.
Don't tell us that, Deb.
I'd like to tell you that, and even Ron said, you've got to, and it says in the book, then we get on to the after, this is where I'm leading into that, I think, the after, what do they call it, after check?
After action reviews.
Yeah, is that the next step?
Yeah, so step 8 is the pricing after action review. So actually going through and reviewing the pricing of each major engagement and seeing, comparing how much value you left on the table. So actually reviewing how accurate your pricing was based on the value you actually delivered at the end of that engagement.
And this, he explained when we had him at the last book club, that came from, was it the Air Force or the military anyway, of some kind, where when they had a battle, I'm not a military person, but I think it was when they had a battle, every single time they had this after
action review.
After action review, and they would sit down and say, with everyone that was involved in that battle, what worked, what went wrong, what could we do better? And he said this is an essential part of successfully implementing value pricing. So Summer, when I said it doesn't miraculously happen, it's having the courage to, after you've done your research, and say, I'm going to step out and do this. And for the very first person you do it with, you then do the after action review, and you say, did that work? And this is where, Scott, we were talking earlier about timesheets. I'd probably whisper, you might like to keep the timesheets going while you are testing this out to see how close you are. We know it's got nothing, value pricing has got nothing to do with timesheets, but in terms of making just covering your costs, it's an important part of it.
Well,
so
because doesn't he? But his whole crux of the book, it's not about cost plus, though, isn't it?
Yeah,
it's
exactly.
about value. So
I think it would be more to prove it to yourself if you're not fully confident jumping 2 feet in that it is working. I'm not like it is a huge change in our way of thinking. And to be able to jump straight from hourly billing to value-based pricing, losing timesheets, losing everything, that's massive. So if you need to do it gradually over 6 or 12 months and hold on to those timesheets for a little bit to prove to yourself, to build your confidence that what you are doing is working, then I think it's not hurting anyone. You're not going to get punished for doing it. You're not going to get fined.
And also with that, I wouldn't necessarily base it on, a time frame as in 6 or 12 months. What I'd do, or what I'd recommend, is on a case-by-case basis. So you do it, and then you do spot checks. So you do it the first few times, however many that is, until you feel confident. You've double-checked it with your timesheets. You're feeling more confident with the questions that you're asking, scoping the work, understanding their value, understanding how to price that, and yes, the numbers work. Then you just leave the timesheets, and then you might just cross-check it every now and again until you finally get rid of them. And it's all about confidence, I think, and making sure that confidence comes with taking action. So it's not going to come with the theory of reading the book or, just knowing in your head what Ron Baker's methodologies are. It's putting the methodologies into practice, learning from your own experience, because you will learn a lot about yourself and where your weaknesses are, where your strengths are, what did you, what money did you leave on the table? What questions didn't you ask? This is all the after action review. What did you miss from that initial interview that when you look back, you could say, oh, I know what I missed there. It was whatever it is. But the after action reviews are absolutely critical in successfully implementing it. And it's not, you will probably not get it right at the start. You may lose some money in some of them, but it's so long as you learn and don't make those mistakes again and learn from that and grow and get more confident about charging the punch in the air rate, and people accept that and you go, wow, wasn't expecting that, then your confidence builds.
I think another big part of the book that I'm keen to implement, which we touched on at the beginning, is that building the knowledge bank within the firm, and that's where he talks about the after action reviews, which I think was chapter 25 in the book. He goes through the importance of documenting not just procedures and processes and actually doing the work, but even how to communicate with clients. So he gives an example of when an accountant or bookkeeper speaks to a customer about increasing their pricing. he would actually encourage us to record a video on what to say to customers when we're encouraging to increase their prices, what analogies to bring up, what insights to share, and actually going through and documenting all of that as well, and constantly working on enhancing that knowledge bank within the firm, and then bringing in those after action reviews, so that with each mistake that we make in the firm and our employees make, the focus is on reviewing what we've done and what we can do to improve that through the questions that he details in that after action review. So the focus is always on evaluation and perfecting the systems that we have in place. So what we could learn from the experience, from the mistake, and making a really comfortable space for our employees to not just report the mistakes they've made, but actually suggest ideas to improve an existing process or system to ensure those mistakes, we minimize the risk of them reoccurring. So it's almost, he's encouraging staff and rewarding employees to actually document these after action reviews, make those mistakes, and then document the learnings from those mistakes as well. And he say the large part of that comes from the leadership, from us as business owners, to lead by example. And each time we make a mistake, whether it's internally with staff or even on work with customers, lead by example and complete these after action reviews and share it with the staff, and having that accountability within the culture of the firm as well. That's something I'm really keen to implement in my firm as well, and build that culture of reflection, evaluation, and accountability.
And I think it's part of that is, this is again bringing your staff along the journey with you, not telling them stuff. It's like this is a collaborative, it's not going to work without the cooperation of your staff, but also letting them know that we all make mistakes and some things take longer than we thought. We don't want them to hide any of that. We want them to feel that they are part of a culture of self-improvement and supporting you as the business owner as well, and really feel valued in that, and that it's okay to come to you and say, Joe or Summer, look, this took me 2 hours longer. This is where I got stuck. You can provide them extra training. If they try to fudge that and feel that you're going to yell at them or get upset or something like that, they're not going to come to you. It's that they need to feel that they are part of a supportive team who acknowledges that we all make mistakes, and what we want to do is collaborate together to work out how we can best overcome them. And that can be let's use this as a teaching opportunity, not as an opportunity to, highlight someone's errors.
Yeah, exactly right. So the focus isn't on laying blame, it's on perfecting our systems. It's continuous improvement. So let's take every mistake and focus on what we could learn and how we could improve our existing systems and processes. So the 4 questions that he recommends as part of that after action review was, question 1 is what was supposed to happen, then what actually happened, what were the positives and negative factors, and what have we learned and how can we do better next time. So the person that encounters the issue or makes the mistake would actually go through and answering those questions, and that could be videotaped or audio recorded or summarized in a report, and then stored in the firm's knowledge bank as well. So he talks about having a library of these after action reviews categorized into different projects or processes, so that each you know, every single staff member then could learn from the mistakes that any one person encounters as well. And it creates a culture of people contributing key learnings, ideas to improve systems, and actually focusing on working together collectively to improve our systems, rather than just laying blame on who did what. So I'd be interested if anybody else is keen to implement after action reviews in their firm, and why.
I think definitely, but I think I have a few more steps to do before I get to that point.
Fair enough.
Has anyone, I've got a question, is anyone on the call right now, and feel free to unmute yourself and show your camera if you like, has anyone actually feel that they have successfully implemented value pricing? No, we're all here to learn then. Feel free to put comments in the chat box, by the way, and any questions that you have. We've got about 5 minutes left. So if you've got a burning question, Joe Throlfo, you've shown your screen. Do you have a question or a comment, or no, you're good? Okay, beaut. If you've got a burning question you'd like to ask us while we're here, then unmute yourself and go ahead and ask it about anything to do with implementing value pricing. We will do our best to answer that for you.
I have a question.
Yes.
Or a discussion topic. Throwing away timesheets, throwing away tracking, throwing away checking how many transactions are going through a particular Xero file. How are you monitoring the capacity of your staff or your practice? How do you know when you need to, like, for example, if a client came to me today and they had 10 staff, before I take them on, I need to make sure that I've got the time and the capacity to take them on. But if I'm not tracking time anywhere at all, how do I know that I've got that capacity?
Ahmad, do you want to?
Yeah, so I think measuring capacity, your staff is still going to be capturing how much work they've got, right? So it becomes a conversation with staff. Like, I constantly touch base with my staff in terms of the capacity they have. So whilst our focus with customers is on value, my staff are still working X amount of hours per week. So capacity gets measured based on how many hours capacity they've got in their week. So I think from a capacity perspective, staff is still working set predefined hours in the week, and we manage capacity based on that. But the service, our engagement with our customers and their KPIs are tracked based on the value we create, rather than the hours that they're working.
Okay.
Helen.
Of course, the converse view is that people take as much time as they have to do a given task, right? So if you say to someone, you've got 2 hours, they'll take 2 hours. Give them the same task and tell them they've got an hour, they'll do it in an hour. You know, it's you know, I think, not that solves the problem, but I'm just saying sometimes, you know, look how efficient you are the day before you go on holidays compared to every other day in the week, in the year, really.
And I also think
like
that
today, when it's Baz due date, all of a sudden,
yeah, exactly,
100 kilometers an hour.
I also think the capacity is probably a different conversation and a different methodology to value pricing. I'm not sure that it's directly linked. Katrina does an awesome mentoring and what have you. She has a calculator for how you do, how you work out capacity in your business. So perhaps you could ask her about that next time you see her online. Helen, you've got a number of staff. Do you know, we've only got a minute left in this call, so I don't want to open up a can of worms, but have you got any advice for Summer?
We do have clients on value pricing, but I don't think I've nailed it. I feel they're more on a fixed price to begin with. We still track time, for the reason being that the value pricing is new to us, and I sort of feel, did I slice it too thin? I needed to just track time for that reason, to make sure that we were also, I guess, to ensure the staff are productive. Not everyone is fast at what they do, others could be slower, so not that that's an issue, but I just needed to I track our hourly rate, combined hourly, because we do different services, different rates internally, even though the client doesn't see that side of our business, because they're all on package things per month. But and also our timesheets that they submit, my staff are, some are casual, some are part-time, so they're paid by the hour that they're physically working and training and that kind of thing. So our times that they put in through Xero, whichever becomes their wages, that kind of thing. So No,
I think it's
the only way I can track it at the moment with everything going on. I don't have salary-based staff. I think that's different when they're salary-based, but when they're not, I don't know how else to track that.
And I think that's the part of the learning curve of successfully implementing value pricing. Amar, have you got a final comment that you'd like to make before we wrap up? We're at the top of the hour right now.
Yeah, I mean, I'd just say consider value pricing to be a complete redesign of your business. It's not just one aspect of your business that you would need to change in terms of a pricing strategy. It becomes part of the culture of your firm on the sort of KPIs you set for your firm, as well as how you communicate to clients, how you communicate to your staff, to everybody really. So it becomes a lot more about focusing on value, transforming our experience with our clients, that wow factor in delivering the service to clients, rather than how many hours does it take us to complete X amount of work. So you start to focus on doing those little things that just add that extra spark to the relationship with the client, to deliver that value. So it's quite all-encompassing in implementing it. It's not just one part of the business to go through.
Yeah, no, that's absolutely true. And I would say that we didn't really touch on, but it's another big subject, is part of Ron Baker's teachings, is what you actually do measure. And the basis of timesheets, he says, fundamentally forces you to measure the wrong thing. And that's and Amar's a big one for what you measure, and loves what Ron teaches you about the KPIs and what you are actually measuring. We might actually do a revisit. I'd love to do a revisit of this topic and this book, possibly in, I don't know, March or something next year. Give people a few months to digest the book, start to implement it, and maybe we'll have another session, if you wouldn't mind, Amar. I think that, would you all like that? Would that be helpful? Yeah, cool. Thank you, Amar, very much. Thank you everyone for attending and for those that contributed. And I hope that was useful information for you. In an hour, we can only scratch the surface. On the Facebook Live, on the Facebook Australian Successful Bookkeepers page, we have got the recordings of the other sessions that we did with Ron Baker, and the first session of the series. This was a 3-part series, so I'm pretty sure all the recordings are there for you to watch. Enjoy your summertime reading and finishing off the book. And let's regroup again in March. Our next book club, by the way, I humbly, it's been put up to actually discuss my book, the book I co-authored with Michael Gerber, the E-Myth Bookkeeper, and I'm very humbled that you would like to have that as part of your book club. That won't be, we won't be running one in December, but that'll be the first one back in January. So look out for those notifications in January. Until then, if I don't see you online, have a safe and peaceful Christmas. Stay safe, keep well. Thanks everyone for attending.
Well, thanks for coming.
Thanks,
Bye.
everyone.